Good morning, good evening, and good day. You're listening to Dramabuds, an anime podcast. So hello everyone, welcome back to Dramabuds, and welcome to another First Impressions episode, where I review the first 4 to 6 episodes of an ongoing show. And, sometimes I go through my journey with the show per episode, my thoughts, my feelings, and everything. Sometimes I try to recap what happened so far and how I like the events. And most of the time, I just give my general thoughts on the show. And finally decide, will I finish it? Will I just continue it with some reservations? Or will I drop? 이 모든 걸 이해하고 있었다면 행복했을까? So let's start with 39, a K-drama that's currently airing on Netflix. Background of the show, let's set expectations. So this was written by the same writer as Encounter and a lot of movies. I think Kim Ji-young born 1982 with Jung Yoo-mi and Gong Yoo. That one, My Annoying Brother, Hyun, with Jo Jung-sok and D.O. of EXO. Yeah, so a bit melodramatic. That's what I should have known. I should have expected. And the director, I think this is their first notable lead director show, but they were the assistant director of Run On, which is why you can see a lot of run-on scenes playing in the background sometimes when they're watching TV. Yeah, that's why. And it stars Son Ye-jin, who plays Chamijo. I've watched her only in Crash Landing on You. But that was 2 years ago. Huge show. So everyone was excited to see her come back on screen. Next, we have Jeon Mi-do, who plays Jong Chan-young, who, of course, I've watched in Hospital Playlist. And lastly, we have Kim Ji-hyun playing Jang Joo-hee, who I've never seen before, actually. So it's about 3 friends since their teenage years. Now they're dealing with love and life in their late 30s. And honestly, before this show started airing, I had a feeling, after the initial excitement of oh, Son Ye-jin and Jeon Mi-do in a drama together, so excited, they're going to be besties. After that excitement wore off, I had this sinking feeling that I wouldn't like it. I don't know why. I just had this feeling that we're touting it as some sort of super warm, healing show, and then it's not going to give that. I had a feeling. And I was right, but we'll get to that later. And then when I did watch it, episode 1, yeah, I was kind of right about what I thought I would feel. I didn't immediately feel connected to these characters or their relationships. And I didn't feel like I was rooting for them as individuals and definitely not as couples. And I was right about the show not being a warm, fun, relaxing, healing experience. It was way more melodramatic than I expected. But, partially it's my fault for having be melodramatic expectations. Be melodramatic known with Chon Woo-hee, Chon Yo-bin, Han Ji-eun. A show that is just very well known for, the female friendships and the comedy and the light moments, while also still having these heartwarming, individual and relationship beats. My fault for expecting that of this show. So, okay, I won't, criticize it for not immediately clicking with me. Because, of course, you are jumping into their world right in the middle of it. Right? They're going through their lives. You get a little bit of introduction with them, but you're not building the relationship with them as they're building it with each other. They're already friends. You're just jumping in. You're telling me that they have a very close connection and sure. But I don't really feel that because I wasn't there to see it. But that's just the setup of the show. I'll grow attached to them eventually, right? It's a matter of time. But as the episodes went on, I could not give it the benefit of the doubt anymore. I couldn't say maybe in a few episodes, because when I realized this only had 12 episodes and I still wasn't feeling it by episode 5 episodes. I mean, we're halfway through the show and I'm still not feeling it. So I don't feel good about this. I couldn't give any more excuses as to why I'm not clicking with this show. 사랑을 했고 나는 외로움과 함께 밀어붙이는 이기적인 마음. So I tried to, break down like what do I not like about what the show is serving. First, and I feel like this is a core problem, I feel no attachment to the friendship of the girls. Though, I don't know if that's because I don't feel any attachment to them as individuals. Like, it's a chicken or the egg situation. Which came first? My lack of attachment to the individuals or the friendship? I don't know. Okay, I feel like it's because they, as a friend group, their dynamic is not balanced. Like, I don't feel that they're actually besties the way I imagine them to be besties. Because Cha Mi-jo and Jong Chan-young are always kind of unintentionally leaving Joo-hee out. Like in episode 4, they actually acknowledge how Joo-hee is always the last to know things and how she feels more distant compared to the other two with each other. And yeah, she voices it out to them, to her friends of 20 years. Okay, and nothing really changes. They don't resolve that. They don't do anything about it. And until now, I still feel that Mi-jo and Chan-young are always having these super deep emotional moments. And then Joo-hee is just going off on her own with her not so love line with this character that barely gets any screen time. She barely gets any screen time, actually. It really doesn't help that Kim Ji-yeon, Joo-hee's actress, is the least popular in the three. It's bleeding into the show because her story is so far removed from the other two. And then another problem I have, as the episodes passed and all these characters are developing their relationships with their supposed love lines, I also felt no attachment to the romances. Like, Cha Mi-jo, Son Yo-jin, and Son-woo, played by Yoon Woo-jin. They're kind of the main romance. That's kind of what the show is serving us. Okay, fine, you're the main romance. Because honestly, Mi-jo is main girl. She has main girl treatment in this show. Everything kind of revolves around her, what she does, her feelings about situations. More on that later. But yeah, Mi-jo is main girl and so she gets the main romance. Okay. But like, honestly, the characters, okay? Not the actors, the characters have zero chemistry with each other. And I don't know if that's the fault of the writing, the directing, or the acting. Like, I just feel no spark between these characters. Okay, like, here's their story. They started out with a one-night stand in the first two episodes, one of the first two episodes, as if to prove a point that like, women in their late 30s do one-night stands and it should be totally normal. Yeah, it is. But it just felt like I didn't feel the spark that would lead to this situation. It just kind of happened. Not for like shock value or anything. It's not like The World of the Married or Nevertheless levels of racy. It's just like, they had a one-night stand. Okay, for some reason, you found that necessary. And then somehow that explains why these two characters are drawn to each other-ish in the future. Okay, fine. Honestly, like these two characters, their relationship, it's okay when they interact as co-workers or as friends. But like, the romantic development always surprises me because I still don't see her falling for him. Although in episode 6, or episode 5, they kind of show that already. But getting there, I was like, wait, how is she falling for him? I just don't see it. And it also... a nitpick. It's a me problem. It's frustrating to me that Son-woo is the type of male lead who's always conveniently there when she's going through something. And that's supposed to be romantic because like, he's the soft male lead. Like, he was literally told by Chan-young to be more like, sorry for the term, but to be more like an alpha male, But he's just not like that. I don't feel it. They're the couple that gets the most like linear development. I mean, aside from the one night stand and then they go to being co-workers and then they kind of build up on that. Like, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill story, I guess. It's linear, right? It's not as messy as the others. But I don't know. By the time they become a thing-ish in episode 5, I still don't feel it. In the next love line we have to talk about, of course, we have to talk about Chanyeong, about Jin-seok, played by Lee Moo-seng, and then the emotional cheating, and then the terminal illness. We have to talk about all of this. This is why I say, like, oh, Mijo and Sonu, they're just the typical run-of-the-mill, main couple. These two are the messy ones, and it's pretty difficult to talk about it, honestly. Let's start with Chanyeong and her terminal illness. I was spoiled, actually. Before I watched episode 2, I knew it was going to be her. And honestly, she's the only one who could die. Yeah, because her story at that point was objectively unlikable. I mean, it's about her essentially hanging on to Jin-seok, who is a married man with a son. Just hanging on to him like, we're not doing anything wrong because we haven't had sex, so it's not really cheating. But I mean, they spend a lot of time together and he clearly doesn't love his wife and wants to be with her, but he doesn't do anything about it. He stays with his wife and, leaves her just hanging on, hoping for way longer, almost 10 years, I think. So it's kind of like, girl, I feel bad for you, but you gotta get out of that situation because he's clearly not gonna do anything about it. And then they start getting into, Jin-seok's backstory with his wife and his child. And essentially, the show justified why he was emotionally cheating on her because, she's not a good wife either. And she manipulated him into getting married by claiming that her baby was his son, but actually it's not his biological son, blah, blah, blah. And yet he, refused to get a divorce, or he didn't get a divorce. He didn't leave her because, his son was too young. And okay, he stayed for the child. All right, fine. I understand that. He still strung Chanyeong along, cheated on his wife. But you know what? No one is good in this situation. No one is morally upright here. So I'm fine. For the sake of argument, I'll just be like, it's fair game, apparently. Apparently, that's what the show is saying. It's fair game if you do something terrible. Other people can do terrible things to you. That's essentially what the show is saying by, is romanticizing the right word? But just by making Chanyeong one of your protagonists and making you want to root for her with Jin-seok. Yeah, that's what the show is saying. So, okay, fine. For the sake of argument, I'll take it just so we can continue talking about it without shutting it down because it's not aligned with how I think. Okay, cool. And then suddenly, I don't know what finally pushes him to do it. He decides to leave his wife. Yay, finally, dude, finally. And then Chanyeong finds out she has cancer and tells him, don't leave your wife. Because, I'm gonna die anyway. What's the point of ruining your family if we won't be happy for a long time together? Yeah, that's where they are at the moment. And I don't know how they're going to drag that out, but I know they will. And I just don't care anymore. It's happening and I just don't care about it. I feel like any sort of attachment or pity I feel for Chanyeong is not born out of genuinely caring about Chanyeong the character. Only because terminal illness is the easiest way to foster concern for a character. It's I'm not going to attack someone who's going through that, okay? No. But I just don't genuinely feel like I care about her. Or her story, or her love line, or Jin-seok, or whatever. It's do whatever you want, but we know that she's gonna die. And that's still sad. They still get me to tear up every now and then. Yeah, of course. But once again, that's pity for the situation, not for the character.
For my 20s, I was your fool. My 20s, I was your fool. My 20s, yeah, we still trying to be cool together.
In general, the writing of this show just boggles my mind. Boggles my mind. The term I will use. I don't understand what's going on. Not in a, this is, confusing and bad way, but did this not go through rigorous editing or something? Is this the best we could have done with this cast? Really? I will also later talk about how the directing and the pacing, so many factors are working against this and just making the writing seem even more bland than it is already. Because okay, first, I feel like the show wants to do so much. Right? They started with a one-night stand, then became co-workers romance, and then there's terminal illness, and then there's emotional cheating, and then Jin-seok's son isn't biologically his child, and his wife manipulated him, and then Sonu's little sister, who's adopted, by the way. Oh, also, Mijo is adopted. So many adopted people, that's their common bond. And Sonu's sister, working as an escort 'cause she ran away from home after her adoptive mother, who was the only one who loved her aside from Sonu, she died and she felt abandoned by the family, something like that. I'm misrepresenting it, I'm sorry. And then Juhi has this like blooming relationship with a chef in her neighborhood who has a girlfriend also, and it's not really romantic because he's taken, but she's still hanging out all the time, and then blah blah blah, so many different things. And they touch on everything so shallowly, and also things don't tie together at all. Like, I can skip whole storylines and it will not really affect other storylines. So I can essentially just pick and choose the stories I want to see. And I think I would understand enough of the show, or just that part of the show, perfectly fine. Because I feel like the stories aren't really tying together. So they're only tied together by the fact that the three girls are friends. But honestly, they're going through their own things. Everything is touched on so shallowly, except for the terminal illness, which is drawn out like hell. Okay, that leads to our second point, which, I mean, the pacing is abysmally slow. It's insane how slow this show is. I saw a comment saying it's like the actors are being told to say their lines in, 0.5 speed and half speed. Because there are some episodes where it feels like nothing is happening. Especially episode 3, which I personally despise. Like, I hate that episode with a burning passion. Because basically, at the end of episode 2, Mijo found out that Chanyong had cancer. And episode 3 was basically about Mijo. Okay, Mijo, not Chanyong. Mijo agonizing over telling Chanyong about her illness. About Chanyong's own illness. Okay, by the way, side note, doctor-patient confidentiality? Excuse me? What's going on here? But fine. Huge logical leap, but fine. So the whole episode was just about Mijo agonizing over that, even telling Sonu before telling Chanyong herself. And then there was also a scene, I think in the next episode though, where Mijo's family was comforting her about Chanyong's illness, which to me is like, oh, really? I mean, I get that it's important to highlight that, a sick person's loved ones, they have their own feelings and grief and everything about the situation. I know that's important. I know that. But I just feel like, why can't Chanyong's reaction to the whole situation be the first story that you tell? Why is Chanyong's illness first about Mijo before it's about Chanyong? Mijo went to Jinsok's office and screamed at him like, we did this to her, blah blah blah, something like that. It's like, why is her illness about you and Jinsok and not about Chanyong? I don't understand. They spent a whole episode with Mijo just agonizing over that decision. I'm just so confused. Like, why is this the narrative choice? Why? I don't. And you know what? Thank God this show has only 12 episodes, because they can only do so much with the setup and the characters. But, by having these episodes where nothing happens, like actually all the episodes are like this. Barely anything happens because they touch on like 6 different storylines, bit by bit, scene by scene. They do so little, they move so little for all of them. And then only at the very end will something super dramatic and super heavy happen. And like, that's just telling me, that whole pacing, that's telling me that they don't have much to work with. And yeah, they're just putting the dramatic stuff at the very end to keep you watching, that's basic screenwriting. That's the usual stuff. But the rest of, the 1 hour and 15-minute episodes, come on, man. Give me something to work with. I know it's not a plot-heavy show or anything, but it's really, really frustrating. There are no more words. I cannot give any more words to describe how frustrating it is. But I will continue to give you words. Another major problem I have is this director, man. The director does nothing to help make the show more engaging. Like, there are some scenes, some shots where it almost feels like they just put the camera on a tripod and pressed record. I mean, just let them act. It's very cut and dry, like face. Move back a little bit, face. It's mean to say it doesn't feel creative, but recently shows have been, getting a little more creative with their directing, with their editing and everything. And so just seeing a show that's like, oh yeah, we are slow and sad, and then have like so much silence, but not in a good way. I don't know. It's very, very boring. Yeah, I know it's a slow show where you just have to watch and sink into the emotions. What emotions? The ones that are being force-fed to me by like minute-long repetitive shots. This is one of those shows where you can really skip a few seconds every now and then just to keep it moving because it's just abysmally slow. Yeah. But you know what? Fine. For the sake of argument, yeah, it's a style. They're going for it, sure. That's intentional. They really want to be like this. Okay, well, it's not engaging to me. I'm very, very sorry. The only saving grace of the show is that, of course, they're good actors. Of course. That's all they have going for them, honestly. But these like talking and crying shots and scenes, they take forever. And there's only so much I can tolerate. Oh, I'm so sorry for the energy I'm giving off about this show. Like, it really frustrates me because I have nothing against 39. I have nothing against the writer, the director, the actors. I have nothing against them personally. But I just cannot get into it and I don't know why. I can apply enough analysis to understand their narrative choices, right? I'm really trying to understand, like, okay, maybe they're going for this, or for the sake of argument, I'll accept that this and that. I can justify it, sure, but I feel no attachment. And I cannot explain why. My theory is that I just find it very boring. I'm sorry, I really can't. I feel like there's a way to be slow and sad while still somehow being a little more engaging. Yeah. So the verdict, despite all the negativity, is that I will continue it fine. But I'm not actively like staying up to watch the episodes at 11 p.m. or anything. Like, I'll just watch it when my family's watching it. The only fun is just making side comments about how we dislike the romance and how, I don't know, slow the show is. That's the only fun part of this. But honestly, the show itself, I wouldn't watch it on my own because I might fall asleep. Honestly. And next, we have Grid, a Disney Plus drama, one of the first Disney Plus originals, yay. Grid is written by the man, the myth, the legend, writer Lee Soo Yeon of Stranger and Life fame. Two shows that I loved for very different reasons, in very different ways. But, you know, Lee Soo Yeon has done murder mystery thriller twice, essentially. And she's done a hospital political drama. Not a medical drama. A political hospital drama. So, you know what? I want to see how Lee Soo Yeon will tackle, like, sci-fi. And you know how she does it? She starts with murder, as she always does. We love to see it, Lee Soo Yeon. Thank you. And the director is not a rookie, but I've never heard of the film that they directed. And it stars Joon, who plays Kim Se-ha, and Kim Ah-jung, who plays Jong Se-byuk. The first episode, actually, for me, was pretty good. Like, it started with the usual sci-fi exposition intro. I mean, even in, what's the recent one? The Silent Sea, there's just like a long sci-fi exposition intro to like explain like what happened to the world and what's our setup. It's pretty standard, I think. Because I think Grid's world isn't too different from real life. And so if they started out like, let's jump straight into the plot, let's not do any exposition, and they just like let people walk through the world and see, you know, the changes with the grid and everything, I feel like it would be more jarring. So I think just getting the exposition and the setup out of the way, that was a good choice. And then, okay, yeah, so after the intro, we get the characters in the present timeline. They're introduced through murder. Yes, that's right, Lee Soo Yeon doing another murder mystery. Truly, truly amazing. We love to see it. Lee Soo Yeon once again also with her silent but surprisingly endearing leads. I don't know, I feel like I'm okay with you as a person already. And she still makes the effort to give them like a rich inner world, trying to explain as much of like what happened to them, without going straight into like someone reading off their profile of what their past and their history was. It's interesting because in these kinds of shows, thriller-ish shows or murder mystery or sci-fi, like I think it would be easy to just write plot vehicles essentially for a mystery. Like conveniently, they're just in the right place at the right time, and then they have convenient jobs and positions in those companies or organizations, and they conveniently have all the skills that are necessary to be a player in the events of the show. But surprisingly, she makes the effort to give them like little quirks that are actually well explained in the show. And something that was super notable to me immediately was right after the dense exposition, there was just so much silence. There was so much showing and not telling. Like, once again, we are introduced to Seha, not through, seeing him talk to everyone in the office and very obviously saying things. You know how when characters are introduced in some TV shows, and you have to notice like, oh, how are they going to explain the relationship between these characters? So oftentimes they would like very explicitly say, "You're my sister," or "Gosh, my annoying boss is calling me again." Those just very obvious ways of introducing characters and their relationships with each other. Try to notice that in shows the next time you start watching a new one. They tend to do that. Anyway, sorry, tangent. Yeah, this show has a lot of showing and not telling. Huge stretches where they don't say anything. But that continues on, by the way. I love how silent the show is. It forces me to watch. Knowing me, knowing how short my attention span is, how easily distracted I am. Sometimes I feel like I should put my phone in the other room to stop me from, going through my phone while watching shows. Because you can get used to like just looking up and reading what they're saying. And you can get the gist of the entire scene and everything they're talking about. You don't even need to watch them act at this point. This show forces me to watch because they're really not going to give me anything through dialogue. And of course, I have some nitpicks when like my suspension of disbelief is being challenged. Like there's this scene in episode 3 where he, hacks into the intranet of the super secret organization, and after it, like he succeeds in all of the security checks and whatever magically, and then he just steps back and pants as if he ran a marathon. It's like, come on, it's a little ridiculous, okay? A little bit. And also, like, a super secret organization is that easy to hack into with some guy who has a laptop? I mean, yeah. A little ridiculous, but fine. Suspend your disbelief. It's fine. And yeah, that's it for me today. Honestly, I cannot analyze the plot and the characters as deeply as I want to. I don't want to say anything about anyone, right? I don't want to claim that I understand everything so far, because this is how thrillers are. Okay, I'm not a fan of thrillers, like mystery thrillers. I'm okay with like cat and mouse, chasing after a culprit thriller, but just not knowing what's going on and waiting for the mystery to build up. Not a big fan because of how slow they are in general. It is the way it is. And how you have to wait for a while before you get any payoff, because of course they have to build up the mystery before they make a reveal. That's just how it is. I won't fault thrillers for mysteries for being the way that they are. But writer Lee Soo Yeon's greatest strength is moving the mystery along bit by bit per episode while leaving you with more questions than you had at the start. So you feel like, I feel like we're moving closer to a reveal, but it's just not going to be there yet. And you know what? For the most part, she has not failed with the payoff. She hasn't let me down yet. And so far, I like what little I know of the characters and their relationship. I feel like I'm not completely lost with the event so far. I really don't want to spoil anything because my spoilers might be useless. They might make no sense in like an episode or two. I guess something I don't like about the show is the 1 episode a week pace. Like, that's hard for me personally. I think it's easy to get lost, especially if you forget what happened in the last episode. But you know what? Only 10 episodes, 10 weeks. I think they can handle it. I think they won't like jump the shark. They won't lose it. I trust Lee Soo Yeon. And if I end up really liking this, Lee Soo Yeon, you are so good. You have done it. Stranger 1 to Life, so far, love them all. So if I end up liking a sci-fi mystery, Lee Soo Yeon, I'm going to sell you my soul, okay? Keep making things. Keep writing always if you're going to do this to me. So the verdict is, yeah, I'm finishing it. I mean, okay, if I can finish Sisyphus the Myth, which made no sense to me, and I didn't like any of the characters or the writing or the directing or the acting. I like nothing about that show. If I can finish Sisyphus the Myth, I can finish Grid. I will do this for you, Lee Soo Yeon. Okay? Because I trust that the payoff will pay off. So yeah, that's it for me today. Once again, I'm still on the fence about 39. I don't like it, and we're already halfway through, so that's not a good feeling for me that we're halfway and I still feel nothing. But once again, I'm just continuing it for the sake of continuing it. Maybe it'll pay off. Maybe I'll feel some sort of attachment before they kill Chanyeong off. But fine. In Grid, once again, I trust you, Lee Soo Yeon. You've never failed me before. Do not let me down now. Please. So yeah, that's it for me today. We have like one more first impressions episode, a few more premieres coming up in a few weeks, in a few days. So we'll see what I feel about those. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and tell me what you thought about today's episode. See you soon!